Greetings, everyone. Hello, hello. Thank you for joining me today in Central Oregon, where it is a beautiful day. We've had some rains this week, so we've got some special fungi to sketch. So, yeah, we're going to get started. So, yeah, every week I go out and I love to have the excuse to collect things and observe more closely because I am going to sketch. If you're with me last week, we sketched some of the local shrubs. So this is the time of year when things are really changing fast. And so you want to get outside and see what might be gone in a week because of a frost or cold weather or rain or heat. So I think last week we sketched some of these wild roses. And I believe last week we also sketched some of these snow plants. So last week we were kind of focused on fruits. So I've seen a lot of other fruiting things. I think I may have talked about these pine drops last week. So I live in the conifer forests, and so most of what we see are conifer species. I also love to draw things that are a little bit abstract, like this is the one of the little scales from the ponderosa pine, which also the pine tree smells like butterscotch. So I think we were talking about those too. So sometimes it's good to sketch things that are just abstract and easy. And then other times more detailed things. What else have I been finding out in nature? Well, just hiking around in my local neighborhood, everybody's got lots of fun things. This was growing in someone's garden. Tell me in the chat box if you know what this fruit is. It's very popular in Oregon. That's a hint. Very, very popular in Oregon. A product made from partially from this plant. Tell me in the chat box if you know what this is. And then also, I'm so excited about these fruits. Does anybody know what these are? They get really big and fat, and they're very important for a certain kind of insect. And when they open up, they have all these incredible seeds. Maybe we'll sketch those next week, because usually when I go hiking, I like to collect a few things that might be more ephemeral, like the berries or the mushrooms. But I also like to pick up things that are going to be around for a while, like these dried pine drops, or like this lichen here. So that I'll have something to draw in my, that I can sit in my cabinet of curiosities there, that I can draw during the lean times. And then another cool thing that I was mentioning on Instagram is I love succulent plants. And some of you may have joined me. I had a whole class on succulent plants as part of my Colorful Botanicals online course. And so this is my, there's nice contrast there. This is my Lithops genus. It's a very special, rare plant endemic to the Cape Floristic Province in South Africa. Does anybody else like succulents? I know Tiffany does. So let's see. Lisa said milkweed. You were correct. And Linda was correct about the hops. So anyway, I'll keep those for another week. They'll be around in the neighborhood. So that's what I just suggest if you're looking for things to sketch, is to collect a variety of things that might not be around for a while, and other things that are quite ephemeral. Okay, and then so we did want to mostly focus on the subject that I wasn't going to do this week, but it just happens to be blooming. And so, now I'm not a mycologist. I'm not a specialist at all, but I love mushrooms, and I've belonged to several fungus groups in California and Oregon. And that's the best thing if you really want to learn to identify mushrooms and learn how to sketch them. Now, I'm going to leave this here for a while, and so you can start sketching it, because I often end up talking too much. So I want you to know And I always have this little sun icon because the lights here are very diffuse so that we can get good lighting here on everything. But it's not like realistic in nature. So I'd like you to kind of think about the sun maybe coming from the upper left, because that will be a little bit different lighting than we have here. So Tiffany says no rain yet. Linda says just observing so far. Great. Okay. So yeah, just to tell you that I'm not a mycologist, but I am a general biologist, and I've been studying mushrooms and drawing them for decades. In fact, here's a painting here that I teach students how to draw inside my course, which I linked to in the chat box. Now, if you are in my Nature Notebook Club, you actually get half price on all of my courses, which can save you a lot of money. And later on, I'll tell you how to get in that, because I'm just going to let a few people in, not the general public. But anyway, so if you're interested in that course and you're already in my club, don't buy it yet. You'll get half price later, because in a couple weeks, we are doing our mushroom master class. Wow, Rochelle in Illinois, you said huge thunderstorms woke you up this morning. How exciting. Cool. Okay, so anyway, mushrooms are among the things that you really want to draw. Now, again, I'm going to leave this here for a while so that you can start looking at it. And I've got it against the black paper, and I'm going to put some here against the white paper. That might help you see both structures because, we've got some darks and some lights. So yeah, you can go ahead and start drawing this. But anyway, mushrooms are one of those subjects that's really helpful to draw in order to help you to identify it, because a lot of the characteristics are really subtle. And again, I talk a lot about that in my online course. But basically, if you want to identify a mushroom, even down to its family or genus, there's a few things you should know. One of which is what part of the world you're from. And another is your habitat. Now, locally, we have this really nice book for the Pacific Northwest, which includes Washington and Oregon. So that's a book I use for a reference. But yeah, you want to know your area you live in, your habitat, and the microhabitat, because mushrooms are very particular sometimes, especially this species. Always grows against dead ponderosas. In fact, one of its names has the word ponderosa in it. So it's decomposing. And so other mushrooms are mycorrhizal associated with different species, especially conifers or oaks. So if you do pick a mushroom, like this one, just take a photo first and take some notes about the habitat it's in. So the type of trees, whether it's moist or dry, if it's in the forest, in the thick duff, or it's in a big meadow, those are all really important. Also, your season. So some mushrooms are going to come out in the fall, like right now, and other species we're going to see more in the spring. And then when you look at the actual body of the mushroom, there's a lot to identify. And again, don't use any of the information I tell you today to try to go out and pick a mushroom and identify it or eat it, especially. So you really need a specialist, mycologist, to help you with that, or join one of those local fungus groups that have forays. Because a lot of the things are kind of microscopic that you need to know. One of which is the color of the spores. And again, in my class, I teach you how to make a spore print. Now, these mushrooms were all fairly old, so that's why I didn't feel guilty picking them. They had already lost most of their spores, so that means they were already able to reproduce. And so here are some of the spores. So many species of mushroom, you have to know the spores. And again, in my course, I teach you how to make really beautiful spore prints. And another species we'll start drawing in a minute also has white spores. Actually, all three of the species we're looking at have white spores. And so this is the kind of ugly spore print because I wasn't going to take off the stalk or stipe of this and ruin it. But anyway, so spore color is super important. Also overall color and the color of the cap, the color of the gills, the color of the stalk or stipe. Also the texture. So a lot of things have different scaly texture or smooth texture, or some of them might be waxy. Now, a lot of this relates to, again, how old the mushroom is. So a lot of the mushrooms, again, that I picked were getting kind of old, so I didn't feel guilty. But some of them, when they're old, they start to decompose into a big, soggy, gluey mess. You also want to just look at the overall shape. You know, some of them are kind of more squat than others. So kind of the relationship of the cap to the stem. And you see a lot of them are this is under the ground. So if you are going to pick a mushroom to identify it, you want to really dig down under the ground into the duff and get the whole thing. And you see, I got the whole thing. And again, this was on a dead ponderosa, and it was helping to decompose it because it's a saprophyte and it needs the nutrients from that decomposing tree to grow. And a majority of the mushroom, of course, plant is underground in the white mycelium that go for, you know, hundreds of feet. So this was only like picking the flower. And again, you also want to notice odors. So I'm going to smell it there. So that can change, though, as well with age. You also want to look at the gills. I'm just going to leave this a little bit and then I'll put it back. Again, you can keep sketching. So the gills, there's a lot of characteristics to know about the gills, but this actually, one of the names for this plant is called the sawgill, because if you could look at this, I don't know, well, you're not going to be able to see it, but the gills, they're kind of like a toothed, like a saw, like a logger. You know, around here we had this area was settled in the early 1900s, and everybody was here to cut down all the forests with those big crosscut saws. And so the gills kind of look like that. And then other things you want to notice that may or may not be present, depending on the species, are things like veils, and we'll draw that in a bit. So anyway, I'm going to, now that I've given you an intro, I'm just going to make this all the way bigger so that you can draw it better. And I'm going to move it over so that I can draw. And we're just going to, you know, try to do some quick sketches. These aren't finished sketches. And if you want to take like a screenshot, let me see. Anyway, my lights are really bright, so the top of this is sort of washed out. But I like to draw something where you can see a bit of the top and a bit of the gills and the stipe. And mushrooms, again, are a subject that is really helpful for you to draw. I'm always struggling with my lights around here. I don't have a great setup. If I got more donations and more students, I could have a better setup. Yeah, I don't know if that's, anyway. So yeah, you can go ahead and keep drawing this. I'm going to move one of my lights a little bit. Alrighty, so yeah, so this is probably, but not for sure, what's called a sawgill mushroom because of those gills that go like this. And it also has a name. I forgot the name, but it's something about ponderosas because it's generally living near ponderosas or at the base because it's taking the nutrients from that. And so I've got some toned paper, which I love. And for me, what am I going to do? I might start out with this. And again, we're just going to spend a few minutes on each of these because it's already 12:20. How did that happen? And you're looking at it from a very different angle than I am. Actually, I'll try to draw what I see on the screen and not actually what I see in the real mushroom, because then that'll be a little bit more helpful. So I generally start with a cap. And, like I said, there are some things that are important to notice, but other things can be a little bit variable. And so sometimes this cap is curled over, and it's fun to show that there's some little cracks and ridges around it. You don't want to ever get anything too exact. And then I see some of the gills coming down like this. So I really suggest drawing mushrooms from a bunch of different angles, especially if you're interested in identifying it. Yeah. So then the gills and the stalk or stipe. And then I do see a little bit I can see from this angle a little bit of the cap going around and the gills in the back. Kind of like that. Okay. And so, yeah, my drawing is close enough. Okay, how you guys doing? And it really helps to have some words. That's where we kind of switch from just a nature sketching to journaling. Now, there's a lot of things I could do at this point. Now that I kind of have my proportions, I could even go in there with ink if I wanted to. I could use black and white charcoal, which if you follow me much, you know that I love because it's super quick, especially on this toned paper. Or you could keep going, with shaded pencil. You could start three-dimensionally shading things if you wanted to. So if you want to take a screenshot of this, you can. I see some cast shadows on here. And if we're going to say that our sun is over here, then, I might have a little bit more shadow here and shadow here. And then, well, we're really dirty here. This is the underground part, actually. So, when I do these demonstrations, I'm demoing field sketching, not demonstrating more scientific illustrations like this. This takes a lot longer. And I do some of those more detailed drawing and painting exercises inside my course. Okay. So, sorry, there's a plane going overhead. Okay. So anyway, yeah, this is called the sawgill. I'm pretty sure. And it's fairly easy to identify. It's got these gills that if you were to look at them in cross section, they would kind of go like this. But they're often in ponderosa forests because they're, again, saprophytes, and they can get huge. So I think that they can get like 18 inches wide. And they're often in open, hot, sunny places. They also have these kind of scales patterns. So I always will, make some notes. And the top has some scales as well. Okay. All right, we have to move on If you want to take a screenshot of that, you can. But again, I really suggest drawing in general, drawing mushrooms from a bunch of different angles so you can really understand things like the way these gills attach or don't attach to the stipe is important in identification. And of course, a lot of things related to the top are important in identification too. Okay, so we're moving on to this one. Now it looks kind of sad. It looks kind of sad, but that's part of its species. Is that when you pick them, they're quite brittle. And this is a let's see. So I'm going to try not to move this. And you know what? Actually, let me just show you this one. That's better. So this is a Russula. That's a genus. And, no, wait, I spelled it wrong. I'm always doing that. It's 2 S's. Russula. And this is called the shrimp Russula. A lot of mushrooms don't really have common names, or their name might relate to their genus. And so they can be called shrimp, partly because they're a color of shrimp. You see that they've got this cooked shrimp kind of red cap, and they have a pinkish stem. And they have really brittle stem. And you see this one's sort of rotting inside. But if you go like this, it actually kind of snaps. That's a characteristic of this group. And then you can also see how the gills are different. They're not sawtoothed, and they kind of grow towards the edge of the stipe a bit. So, and it's really pretty. It kind of looks like a toad stool that a little toad would sit on. So you might want to draw that one. I don't know how to, no. Well, let's just keep that. That's pretty. So again, you can see that habitat. It's a little bit different habitat than the first one, though it is in the same forest. So it's really important to notice that. And I'm just going to do a different technique, just fun. I'm using a big brush, and I'm just going to have fun. And again, I'm not drawing what I see. I'm drawing from the photo. So I see this kind of wavy cap. And there's actually a part of the cap you can see the gills, and then it waves and waves and kind of waves. So I'm just doing sort of a contour drawing. And let's see, I see some gills here and some, let's see, what do we got here? Gills here. And then the stem. And then we just kind of have some duff here. So that's fun. So again, that's a kind of Russula. It's a pretty common genus. This also has very light spores. And so like I showed you here, this was its spore print, but it was pretty pale. Because again, this was a pretty old mushroom, and I encourage people, not to collect things that are still useful to nature. So it had already lost most of its spores, and so it had already reproduced. Okay, go ahead and keep saying hello in the chat box. Any questions? And yeah, so again, this isn't technically a drawing class; it's a play date. So you kind of draw on your own. I'm just kind of playing with different techniques for fun. And so yeah, So yeah, some of the characteristics of this shrimp rusula is it's kind of shrimp colored, and supposedly it has a seafood smell. Although again, odors can really change as something gets older. So I don't really smell anything. So it's always important if you're really trying to identify something to use all your senses. So really use all your senses when you're illustrating to help you identify something. So of course, we always tend to focus on sight, but you should focus on the sense of touch and the sense of smell and taste. But warning, only if you're really with mycologists who know, because if you're going to taste something, you've got to know a lot more. So I'm not telling you, try not to taste it unless you're really with somebody good. So yeah, sight and touch and smell. And so yeah, touch is really important in some species, because like this species, it has a very brittle stem. It's almost chalk-like. If in younger ones that aren't so moldy like this anyway. So how we doing? Is anybody sketching from this beautiful photograph? And yeah, you want to notice the habitat. It's in this habitat that's moister than our first species. Yeah, so you can keep sketching. I've got to plug in my computer. I always forget to do that. So you keep sketching. All right, how we doing? You can take a screenshot if you want of this. I'm trying to. There we go. That's a nice screenshot if you want to take a picture to keep working on this. So tell me if you're still live here. Nobody's mentioning anything. I think it's because you're sketching. Monica, yeah, the photo is really big so that you can mainly just draw. This isn't so much of a drawing demo today, but this was just where I was playing around just with a graphic outline with this big, bold Faber-Castell. So I always just show a few different ways of sketching, like when I was doing the first one in pencil. So it's more for you to, look at the photo. And the photo is a much healthier specimen than this one, which is pretty old. Because again, I try not to pick things when they're still reproducing. But yeah, you can see it's got that shrimp-like color top, and it's got the pink stem, and it breaks easily like chalk. And yeah, okay, we're gonna move on to the coolest one. So y'all are gonna have to, so Joey and Lisa and Tiffany, I'm so glad you guys are all sketching. So we're gonna move on to the pièce de résistance. Just a sec, I gotta get this bigger. Oh, Susan is painting. That's wonderful. I can never figure out which of these buttons. There we go. Okay, so now we have our famous species. Who knows what this is? This is global in distribution. This is global in distribution. This is something you really need to look at from a few different angles, and to, if you're going to pick it all the way down to the vulva or bulb here. And I've got it against the black paper again so you can see it. Who knows what this is? If you're watching from Europe, you might know. And if you're watching here in the Pacific Northwest, this is one of the most widespread species, and it's been famously depicted in myths and folklore. And it's used by traditional people, especially in Siberia, for their rituals. Linda, no, it's not a bolete. So boletes have pores instead of gills, and they look really different from this. So when we do our mushroom masterclass, Linda, you'll learn a lot more about identifying things like boletes, which are very tasty and edible, and boletes do grow here. But that's opposite of this one. Anybody know what this is? One really important characteristic of this genus is it's got this kind of skirt, and that might be really subtle in an older mushroom. So again, you really want to look, depending on, doesn't matter if you're observing flowers or trees or animals in the field. It's best to observe as many as you can before you make any kind of generalizations. So I always use the example of if you go into a clover patch and you just start drawing the clover that happens to have 4 leaves. It's a 4-leaf clover. Is that what they generally look like? No, they generally have 3 leaves. So it's the same with mushrooms, especially. You want to look at them from different angles, and you want to look at different ones of different ages. And again, it's kind of hard to catch them because, sorry, I'm going to not move this again so that you can start drawing. And I want you to be able to see a little bit of the cap again, because that's important identification. And this very important skirt or veil. And I'm going to move it over now, and I'm going to make this solo layout. There you go. And what am I going to use here? Trying to get my paper. You would not believe how crazy it is here. No one's guessed what this is yet. It's really obvious. Very famous species. I've got these fun Uni-Posca pens. This is an Amanita genus. So this species is 99% probably Amanita muscaria. And it's also called the fly agaric. So this is a very famous group. Tiffany says death cap, so that's a relative. And so the death caps, also called destroying angels, are a different species in this genus. And they are deadly, deadly poisonous, but usually not if you're just touching it. You know, you'd have to eat some in general. But these are considered like hallucinogenic and were used again by various cultures, especially in northern latitudes. They're native all across the northern hemisphere, from Alaska and Canada and the northern United States, all over Europe. So let's see, what am I doing? Let's see, can we see that? Oh, you can't really see that at all. That's fun. So sometimes I will draw a white specimen on black paper, maybe especially if I have some sort of fun chalk pastels or something. I generally do a fun drawing class with kids at our local fungus fair using chalk pastels, and they love drawing the species. So anyway, you can't probably see my drawing very well, but that's because I'm just going to want to outline it. So some important characteristics. These guys also have white spores. And I might just depict that. So doing the spore print is really important. Because sometimes the only difference visually between something deadly and something edible are spore colors. So like Tiffany mentioned the death cap, there are definitely amanitas that are pretty much all white or maybe a little tinge of yellow or something that look like a lot of edible species. So doing a spore print is super important. And so Tiffany, yeah, so this can vary in color. So these can range from a yellowish to orange to red. And you'll see these white dots on the top. And those aren't just dots. Those are actually remnants from the universal veil. So there's these kind of like pieces that were part of the universal veil. And that's something that isn't present in all mushrooms, but it is very well known in the amanitas. So basically a mushroom in this group would have sort of hatched almost, like here, almost sort of hatched from this universal veil. And so there would be some pieces of the veil remaining on top of the mushroom. Isn't that cool? So now I might just add some of my white here. And if I had more time or more colors, I would add the other things. And again, I won't move this again so that you can sketch it. This will be our last mushroom, so you can get a nice sketch. So they also have this other veil. It's kind of like a skirt thing. Now, if you're on my email list, like I think 90% of you are, I sent you a link to download the graphic that is actually using this Amanita muscaria. So it'll match pretty much exactly. And so that's another veil. That's called the partial veil. And so a lot fewer types of mushrooms have these veils. So that is one of the characteristics of this genus. Different species in this genus might have slightly different caps, might not have the colors, might be yellow or pure white. And so that's why it's super important, if you're going to pick a mushroom, to identify it, to pick the whole thing. So sometimes you have to dig down, 3 or 4 or 5 inches deep. And you see right here, it was the level of the soil. And so this bulb here, this what we call a vulva, that's also characteristic of the amanitas. Not all mushrooms that have this are poisonous, but all the amanitas have this enlarged base with this veil. And so they're really pretty. And, again, my lights are really harsh in here so that you can see the paper well. So it's not easy to light things very well. So when you're in the field, again, before, if you do decide to pick something and take it out of its habitat, make sure to take some photos of the habitat and the photos of the species from different angles, just like the Russula that I showed you. That beautiful photo looked a lot better than these guys in the studio. So, and if you don't have a camera, take good notes in your naturalist notebook. And so again, you're learning some of these key characteristics that are necessary to begin to start learning how to identify. And again, you can have a fairly childlike symbolic sketch like this and still identify something, if you're using these notes. So like this has the orange and white cap. Suzanne says, looks like an omelet. This one does? Yeah, it kind of does look like an omelet. I had an omelet this morning. So little flecks of, cheese or tomato or something. So how are we doing? Are we still sketching? So yeah, that universal veil is not very obvious now that this is all dried up. So yeah, you don't have to be, an accomplished artist. You can just make things really symbolic like this. Again, there's a big difference between this and this in terms of how much time you spent. And so when I'm teaching, I'm just trying to show you the characteristics for you to notice. So how you guys doing? I want to move on. So yeah, if I change the lighting, things really start to look different. And so lighting is really important. And again, especially if you're going to bring something in from the field, it is good to try to get lighting that's not too bright, not too dark, and that generally has one direction. And so, just showing how I turn off and on lights. Lisa says, good. Okay. Any questions so far about fungi? So there's 3 very different species that I picked just yesterday in my local forest. And again, if you're going to pick something, just be really careful about how many you pick, and try to get ones that are a bit older so that they've already reproduced. Don't be greedy. Like in general, if you're picking a lot of things for eating purposes, at least in our area, you need to get a permit from the Forest Service. So, sorry, I'm trying to figure this out. Okay. So yeah, a lot of characteristics to notice in mushrooms. And so a lot of them can be quite subtle and can be things you're not used to looking at if you just draw trees or flowers. And so the act of drawing helps you to focus your mind and to, make those notes. In terms of journaling ideas also, to go beyond just a nature sketch like this, if you were thinking about more journaling, you might want to think about, what this plant, or not a plant, it's in its own group, what it reminds you of. And so like for me, I like to kind of give things personalities and think about what I could, how do I say it? How I could use a mushroom to inspire me when I need some strength. So a lot of them, like a mushroom, you might think that they're really ephemeral. Or you might think that they can take advantage. How would you say that? They very quickly can be, what's the term? So when it rains, they've been waiting, maybe just patient, I guess, or they quick acting. They can be quick acting because it's important, in your area too. Whenever you get some autumn or spring rains, usually within just a day or two, mushrooms start coming out in the meadows or in the lawns or in the forest. And so you really want to jump on that. And then they also don't last very long, again, depending on the species. Some of them are a lot bigger and more woody, like this sawgill, and some like inky caps. If you've ever heard of an inky cap, they dissolve into just this big black mess. And so you really want to jump on it. So anyway, these guys remind me of something that's ephemeral, something that's patient, that can wait all year, and then really quick acting, jump to action. Tiffany says whimsical. So yeah, sometimes when, I'm feeling like I need some inspiration from the natural world, when I'm going through something, I think of a particular thing. So, like if I'm overthinking a problem I have and I just can't act, I can say, hey, I'm going to be like a mushroom and just be quick acting. Or if I'm waiting a long time and impatient for something to happen, I can say, I can be like a mushroom in the forest and be patient. So I like to journal a lot about that, getting some inspiration from the life history or ecology or natural history, biology of a plant or animal or fungi. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to move on. Our one last thing, which I bet Tiffany can guess. Tiffany, what do you think we're going to draw next? I talked about it on Instagram. What can I use? What color should I use? This is just cheap construction paper. This is fun. Lithops, yes. And who knows what the Latin meaning of lithops is? Ta-da! So I'm going to make this full screen. So every week I, choose things that happen to be happening in my garden or in my house. And this is a rare. Let me see if I can get closer here. Is that still sort of in focus? Yeah. Okay, so this is a Lithops genus. Litho as in stone, because these look like little pebbles or stones. So they're often called stone plants. And I love these guys. These are endemic to South Africa. And South Africa, South Africa is very special botanically. A lot of people, when they think of Africa, they're just thinking of, rhinos and tigers, or leopards and giraffes and stuff. But there's a very interesting area called the Cape Floristic Province. And we have another very diverse floristic province in California called the California Floristic Province. And so there's many species that grow nowhere else in the world. And I don't know, some of you know, a lot of you guys are new. I taught a workshop on succulents a couple years ago. It was a very detailed workshop on the different families, because there are other families as well. Sorry, now I got rid of I was trying to have you see okay, write that down, lithops or stone plant. I want you to see the whole thing. And again, my light is funky. My light is casting shadow where I want to draw. But I'm so excited because this is the flower. So the lithops plant, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them here. And they generally grow in these big areas. I don't know, kind of like a strawberry, where they just grow really thick. And there's a whole bunch of them. And they're called stone plant because they look like little stones. And there's always 2 of them. So the whole plant is just these 2 leaves. So I won't move this. You can draw this. We'll draw this for the next 5 minutes until we end. And so they're just these 2 fleshy leaves, maybe that almost look like 2 thumbs. And sorry, I won't move this again. And then the flower comes out right between those 2 leaves. And it's just this really subtle white flower. And actually, let me put this right in the middle. Can you see that? I should hold this for you. I don't know if you can see that. So anyway, the flower comes out. It's really ephemeral, kind of like mushrooms. It doesn't last very long. And then it... I'm having a hard time refocusing. And then it fades away, and then the plant goes dormant, and you should not water it. Like Tiffany was saying earlier today on Instagram, you know, she has a hard time keeping these alive. And they're a lot like orchids. They really thrive on benign neglect, meaning just put them in a sunny window and water them maybe once a week, let them completely dry out. Then these will kind of wither, and the whole plant will look like it's dying, but it's not. And it'll send up 2 more leaves that look just like this, but miniature, but they'll be in the opposite direction. So if there's 2 like this, then there'll be 2 like that. And that's the time you definitely want them just to go dormant. What else? Oh, yeah. So they have these interesting patterns on them, and each species looks a little bit different. And then they kind of have these windows. It's hard to see. I have another one. This is another rare succulent from South Africa. And it has the same thing in that it has these little windows, kind of these sort of see-through areas. I know it's hard to see in this light, but if you ever get a chance to see these close up, they have these little windows. And so there's something about them living in really harsh sun related to the photosynthesis. And that these little windows, which you can, that are here too, but aren't as obvious as here. Yeah. Help them to photosynthesize better. So, yeah, anyway, so, you know, you might just kind of get a pair of them like that, and then like this. And then that beautiful flower. Now I can't find my white charcoal pencil. Oh, here it is. It's kind of hard to see the structure of this flower. It is kind of coming out like that. Yeah, and again, today is not really a drawing lesson. These free community events are just kind of fun for us to learn about nature. And do your own thing. Time to just have fun, experiment. So yeah, they kind of have this really interesting top. And these sort of bumps. So yeah, so different species have sort of different patterns here on top. Thanks again for joining me. I really appreciate donations. I did put a link at the very top. I've got links to both donate by credit card and by PayPal. So if you've been joining me and you're not already a paid member, you may know that I've taught over 250 of these live online free events since the pandemic started and ended. And we'll probably start again. And so even if it's $5, I really appreciate that. Really adds up. I've only had 3 donations. One of them was Rita, so thank you. So if you're not already a member, I really appreciate it. I've only had 3 donations this month. So if you're not ready to commit to my membership or one of my bigger courses, but you're finding value and entertainment, just donate the amount of a Starbucks coffee you would have bought. Okay, so I really appreciate that. And again, I did put links. I'm not sure if it'll let me put a link in again, but I've got links to my website and that last link I just put that says tip jar. Those are totally safe links. You're not going to get your credit card stolen or anything. But even $5 shows me that you value these, because sometimes I really don't know. I did have over 130 people sign up today, and probably a lot of you will be watching the replay because it's a little late in the day, especially if you're on the East Coast or in Europe. So even a $5 donation, I really value. If you're not ready to commit to one of my online memberships or my courses, anybody can afford $5, right? And that goes a long ways to help support me. I don't do anything else. Teaching people about the natural world is my passion. And this is what I do for a living. This is not a hobby, although just because I love it, it doesn't mean it's not a business. So anyway, yeah. Okay, well, I got to get going. Hopefully I'll be back next Saturday or Sunday, and I think I'll be able to go earlier. So for those of you on the East Coast or in Europe, you'll be able to join live. So thank you so much for joining me, both live and replay viewers. And please check out those links in your email or in the chat box to donate or purchase my course called Discover and Sketch Mushrooms. And yeah, so thank you so much. I got to get going. The dog is whining. Bye.